The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 plus in present and select states. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. My name is Tara Sands, and I am joined by
Steve Yurko.
We are out of practice. We haven't recorded an episode in like a month, so we were reunionizing. That's not a word. Talking about teeth issues and what's going on.
A common practice on this show is to talk about
It really
teeth.
is. We just need a spin-off podcast all about dentistry. But yeah, we've both been traveling a lot. Anything 4Kids related come up in any of your travels? I don't think I expected to, but
I'm trying to think. The answer is like definitely no. But I'm actually going to my parents' house for the first time in almost a year and kind of weeding through some of my stuff that I left there. At least I was like, I saw some of my old Shonen Jump magazines that I will not throw out, and that's like, you got a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh and One Piece stuff in there, and that stuff, and those magazines were printing like probably like close to like the height of 4Kids. So that's like stuff from like 2003, 2004. Related. Yeah,
I'll take that as a yes then.
I'm pretty sure in one of those magazines has like the whole spiel about talking about the One Piece anime premiering on Foxbox around that time. And that was
right.
Like, it was like the first hints
valuable?
To nerdy people like me,
but like anything in pristine condition. And
no, these were
nothing like
these were things we took to school with us, and we read them. We passed them around. So, but no, yeah, I'll think I'll have more time in the future to kind of really go through that stuff and see what I got there. And I spotted some VHSs that have like.
Ooh.
Stood there like me recording stuff on TV. I don't even know what's on there at this point now.
Gold is on there.
I
don't know.
I'm doubtful there's anything 4Kids related on there, but if I could find a way to digitize it, if it isn't ruined, if I find anything, I'll report back. But I don't know.
Yeah, you will.
But
I saw someone for the first time handle Pokémon cards with a gloved hand during my travels, which I was very impressed with. Like I was with hardcore card collectors on this my most recent trip, and the care, like I always see people take good care of their cards, but this was like another level. Like it was intense. White glove on the hand.
This is like it's like an auction, kind of like the way to handle.
That's what it felt like.
Fine art.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I became so much more paranoid about how I handle people's cards now. Because of that. Like it kind of changed the way and one of my things, I was overseas, and one of them was a card show, which is so different. Like I was trying to explain to someone the difference between like a card show and an anime con or even a Comic-Con. Like not a single person in cosplay. Like that's not at all what this was. There was a soccer player sitting like two things down from me. So, like totally different vibe.
So it's mostly like it's either like signings or it's people there to shop or to haggle. I guess.
Mostly card tables. So like I was sitting next to, there was only 3 of us signing. One was me and then an artist from who does the Lorcana.
Oh, yeah, Lorcana, the Disney.
Lorcana cards. Yeah. So her stuff was gorgeous. And then a soccer player. Like, very different. And, I mean, I signed stuff I've never seen before. Cards that, like, have never appeared on my table. Like, gorgeous artwork. Foreign cards that, like, just people here. It was astounding. And, like, obscure characters.
Was Bulbasaur the top one, or was there...
Yeah,
what were some of the obscure
Jasmine.
ones?
Well, Jasmine. Yeah. That's not obscure, but like, someone brought me an Ape Escape card to sign.
Oh,
it was me and Veronica Taylor on there. That was super cool. I signed some weird Italian thing that I posted on Twitter. Like, I was able to really confirm, because I think as much as we've talked about it on this show, I knew that my voice was used as Bulbasaur as the Pokemon themselves in other countries. But that still sounded weird to me. Like, I still was like, no, they must have redone it. So, like, I think I just didn't believe it in non-English speaking places. But I met someone from Hungary who was like, yeah, the whole show was dubbed, but your voice was still there. So, like, it just kind of confirmed that. But I was also in Germany, where it's Bisasam, I think is how you pronounce Bulbasaur in that country. So, like, that was definitely not my voice.
Right.
It was fascinating. Yeah.
That was a pretty big trip you're on too. That was.
Oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm still tired.
Yeah, I think you travel way more than I do, but I was even looking just like at the amount of flights I took this year, and I'm like, how the hell did I do? I mean, there are a lot of layover flights. So I guess they count those. They count those as individuals, but still.
Yeah, not happy to be adjusting from an 8-hour time difference.
No, it's the worst. The most I've experienced, of course, is East Coast to West Coast, but the Japan one I've done knocks me on my ass.
That's a tough one.
Every
that's
time.
Tough.
Yeah.
Oof. How many times have you been to Japan?
Twice.
Oh, okay.
Very cool. The first time, like, going there and coming back, it was bad. Second time going there, it took me like a couple days to adjust. When I got back home, though, I think I just needed like one day of just like taking it easy, and then I was back. But I remember I was pretty miserable. The first trip I did, coming back, I was just like, oh, now I'm back home. It sucks.
And then it's not fun to be home.
No.
One of the cool things, though, another 4Kids kind of related thing. I signed a lot of Topps cards. I met someone who had full sheets of the Pokemon Topps cards. I mean, he didn't have them with him, but like, I was like, that is a new goal. But at New York Comic Con, I don't want to mispronounce his name, but the artist of the original Bulbasaur card was there. But he wasn't supposed to be signing Pokemon cards. He's drawn like, I think, over 80 Pokemon cards. His artwork is beautiful. But his line was very long and he was very expensive, so I did not get to meet him.
Wow.
But I would love to thank him.
Mm-hmm.
Arita is his last name, I believe.
God, there's like so much variety in guests at New York Comic Con these days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming. I like the smaller shows. That was so overwhelming for me.
I haven't been to New York Comic Con since like 2016, and even then it was already like people were saying like, oh, it's too much, and I'm sure it's only gotten crazier.
It's bonkers.
Mm-hmm.
Bonkers.
San Diego of the East Coast, I guess. Yeah.
It is. And what's so funny is, like, I feel like in the past when I've gone, because it's all the way on, like, 11th or whatever, it's, like, all the way on the west side, for those of you who know New York.
As west as you could get, pretty much.
As west as you can get. So it's sort of isolated, but now I feel like now when I was just walking down 8th and 9th Avenue, like, I was seeing people in cosplay all over. Like, it felt like it infected the city. Not infected, but, got into the city even more than like being an isolated thing all the way on the west side.
Was the damn 7 train running to there?
I don't know, because I was staying walking distance.
Yeah. It seems like every time I go there for Anime NYC, it's like, oh no, the 7 train's not running here this weekend.
They have a thing about you. Everyone knows you're coming. And they all have a meeting.
They knew I had so much experience with the 7 train. They're like, oh, we want you to feel like how it was back in the old days when you're going to your ex-girlfriend's place in Queens, and we want you to get off at Times Square.
Well, speaking of you, our guest today is Chuck Patton, and he is a very prolific storyboard artist, just like you. So I know you guys will have stuff to talk about. In addition to that, I'll do some of this in the intro, but he directed the first 2 seasons of Turtles. So I'm very excited to reconnect with Chuck. And we will be right back with him. Oh, wait. Actually, before I tell you to do that, you should follow all the links in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Like where?
best place to start is our website. That's 4Kids. Oh my God, I haven't done it so long. 4kidsflashback.com, right? With the number 4.
Yeah.
I almost said with the word. No, it's the number 4.
Steve, it's been so long. Yeah.
And then whatever social media you prefer these days, we're there. We got some presents there. Just look up 4Kids Flashback with the number 4.
Not presents with a TS, not like gifts for you, but like
No.
presents, like we're there. Yeah. Patreon.com/4kidsflashback. If you want
Absolutely.
episodes a week early, ad free. And to join our Discord channel. You can do that for $5 a month. And we'll be right back with Chuck. Our guest today is the amazing Chuck Patton. At 4Kids, Chuck was the director of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but he has done so much more than that. Like I said in the intro, he's an accomplished storyboard artist, an art director, a director. We'll get into all of it, but thank you so much for being here, Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, I should tell you now, Steve, I'm hoping Steve has a lot of questions because Steve is a storyboard artist as well.
Oh, cool.
So,
Me too. I hope I do. I gotta bring honor to my job description. So,
well, I hope you guys use words I don't understand because like you're going to talk your art lingo. But
well, anytime, feel free to just like slow us down.
No,
I want to know what art lingo is. That's going to be a new one on me.
Well, I'll tell you when I hear it.
Okay, good. No, that's good. I like that.
But that actually leads me. Well, I want to go into your backstory, but I would also like to understand the differences between these jobs because not everyone listening understands when I say art director versus a director versus a storyboard artist.
Yeah.
Can you give us just like the Cliff's Notes version of the different jobs you've had?
That's a very good point. I like, okay. I've done them all. I mean, when I came into the business, I literally started from the bottom. So that in animation, even though at the time I came into the business, I was already at, I would say, well, for a beginner, wouldn't be top tier, but I was certainly in the top group of, I was a comic book creator. I was hired by DC Comics to draw their principal superheroes. My first book was Justice League of America. So I drew everybody, and you had to get good at drawing everybody because you had everybody in the book. But and then I got a little disillusioned with comics and got into animation. And I have to say, I came into animation almost like an outcast. I came into animation basically to disappear, just to make a check and go away. And I fell into a position where I got to be the guy they go to because comics became big, being adapted into animation. So all of a sudden, I'm the comic book guy. And I'm the guy they went to. And I was the one who would argue with these execs about how something was stupid. And Batman was something I was very close to. My mentor was one of the second biggest creators on Batman. And so I knew Batman like I knew my parents. So I remember how I got pushed up from being just a mere artist was I was arguing with this exec who was going on about Bruce Wayne. I had to stop him and go, I hate to break your bubble, Bruce Wayne doesn't exist. And he was Mr. Highfalutin, I know this. And I goes, no. Bruce Wayne died in the alley when his parents was killed. The trauma of that created Batman. He would tell you himself, Bruce doesn't matter anymore. He's Batman. In fact, they did an episode in Batman the Animated Series where he's being hypnotized, and someone said, well, how did you keep him being hypnotized? He kept calling me Bruce. And the guy went, I think it was Robin going, you don't call yourself Bruce? And he doesn't.
I think that's Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Get nerdy here.
I've watched way too much stuff and it's all mungled up. So I'm counting on you, Steve, to separate me. It's like my brain is like Velcro.
We're showing some friends Batman Beyond for the first time. So I think that's why it's fantastic.
Series. They did a great job on it. Was so much they did. Anyway, and that's one of the shows I didn't work on. But so my background was comic books and then animation. And when I went from comic books, I was a penciler in comic books. I drew not only Justice League, I drew Teen Titans. So I knew the new heroes, I knew the old heroes.
Hmm.
I did a character that's now being popular and popularized named the Vigilante. I drew that.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Um,
I don't know. I'm not an expert, but that's now something I've heard in the
he's
zeitgeist, I feel
now,
like.
he's
Yeah.
like this funky little breakout star in Peacemaker, which I'm glad. It's good to see him. It's like seeing this your child grow up. Um,
Oh.
um, and in an animation, I started basically as a props guy, and then from props drawing backgrounds. Props meaning
Uh-huh.
the
Yeah,
guy
tell me
who drew.
I don't know what that means.
I
Okay.
had to draw the chairs, the tables, the cars, anything that a character picked up, pencil, spoon,
Oh,
ant.
wow.
All this stuff has to be drawn at the time,
Hmm.
and still is to a certain degree. But there were guys who specialized and just did that. And then later I had to do layouts, or as we called it, just buildings, designs, backgrounds rather, backgrounds. And I
Hmm.
did that. And then what I was really going for, what I really wanted was character design. I did it, but animation is so varied and so much style is involved. It's easy to be stuck in one style. It's hard to come in and being able to jump from one style to the other. You got realistic style, which I was good at, but they also have cartoony style. And then
Hmm.
you got hyper style and or what I call really bad, ugly animation drawing. But it's better to call it highly styled. And then you got anime that came in towards the end of became super popular while I was coming up in the animation business. Now that's just the artist part. A director is the person who tells everybody what to do. Usually they're a board guy. Some 9 out of 10, there always should be a board guy
A
themselves,
storyboard guy,
a
you mean?
storyboard guy
I just want to
who
spell it out at
becomes a
the beginning
director.
so we know it all. Again, I told
No,
you there'd be terms.
no. This is good. I'm going to slip into abbreviation because I've been doing this for over 30
Hmm.
years or 40 in some case. So it's like, I'm shorthanding it, but
Yeah.
you go, most our, there have been few directors who weren't animation directors who weren't artists. I don't trust them. I'm sorry. Got to be
That's
willing
fair.
and able to draw. Well, it's a visual medium. I don't care what
Yeah.
they say. You got to be able to translate their wonderful words and thoughts into visuals. And if you don't understand that or can't draw and don't know how to draw or tell a story, because that's really what storyboarding is, it's in the name. You're telling a story. It's not just drawing pretty pictures. You're telling a story. And it's all in sequence or sequential, meaning again telling a story, or as the kids would like to say now, it's all cinematic. This is what you see when you watch a movie or a TV show, and that's what a storyboard guy does. They detail this out so that we see it, and then it's animated.
Yeah.
So that takes care of storyboard artists. That takes care of director. I jumped ahead because you have
No,
also
that's okay.
story art
Yeah.
director is the guy who sets the style of the show or brings together the people to set the style of the show and then guide them to maintain the vision of what the director and the producers are trying to do. Um, I have been lucky or unlucky to have been the art director of, I would say, good. I used to say 100% of my shows. It's more like 95
Okay.
because, and it wasn't because I was so good. I had to be good, but there was times where the budget wouldn't allow me to have an art director.
Oh.
So, or often in the last couple of jobs, I found the art director I had was not qualified. So I had to step over or move them aside, and do the job because I knew what I wanted. And that's basically what an art director does. They guide the vision. They help come up with how this is going to be interpreted in animation.
Like the tone. And that, to me, I guess,
Yeah,
because of working in other mediums, I always think of that as the director. So you're right. It
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense that the same person could handle both of, if there's time
Well, it's
to
funny,
handle
back
both.
in the day, you had to, and then later on, as it got more complicated and more people calling the shots, then they're the ones. And this is my first negative about the business I'm going to bring up. You got a lot of people coming in who all want to control, so they keep putting other people in who they can control to control the property or the direction, and then that's when you get problems. Bottom line is the director, and it's not just the episodic director. but the supervising director, which is what I was on Ninja Turtles.
What is a supervisor? Okay, so what's
That's
tell
the
me
head
explain that.
muck-a-muck. That's the guy.
I mean, is that what we say when we say showrunner? Is that
It could
basically what
be.
that is?
It could be, but most
Sometimes,
showrunner,
yeah.
it gets really muddled because now showrunner is so much more bigger than when I started
Okay.
out. But technically, you're right. A showrunner, well, in this case, the supervising director, he's the guy in charge of everybody, in charge of the storyboard artists, in charge of the directors. He gets people who can basically put the episodes together, and then he guides them what he's
Mm-hmm.
looking for. Generally, this is a problem. This is a production problem, or a production. This comes out of production because you have so many moving parts. You need other people to supervise or at least take care of the episodes. So you'll have an episodic director. Sometimes they're just the board artists themselves. If they're drawing it and putting it together, they're basically kind of directing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And having a director also kind of helps keep it from getting it kind of gives you a next step away from being too close to the material. Because you'll miss
Right.
things. You'll miss a lot of stuff. And then there are other people who will call it out for you, your timing directors, your voice directors. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah.
But the supervising director is the guy who tells her, he's the general.
Hi guys, Tara jumping in here to let you know where you can meet Steve and I. Steve will have a table in Artist Alley at MagFest if you're in the Maryland, D.C. area, January 23rd through 26th. And I will be a couple places if you're going to be in Dallas. I will be there at the Amazing Art Expo from January 17th to the 19th. I'll be at Savannah Animazing Convention from January 25th to 26th. If you're up in Washington State, I will be at Anime Washington from February 7th through 9th. And March 1st and 2nd, I will be at Reading Anime Con up in Reading, California. So come say hi, hang out. It's so much fun when we get to meet listeners. So let us know what you think of the podcast. We are always open to feedback and suggestions from you guys. See you soon.
Flex your business with an American Express Business Gold Card. You'll earn 4 times membership rewards points on your top 2 eligible spending categories, like transit and electronics, each month, on up to $150K in combined purchases per year. Plus, you can now earn 3 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at AmericanExpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold, built for business by American Express.
Now that you've explained that, because I wanted to kind of lay the groundwork, how did you know how to do all this? Were you drawing all your life? I know you did go to art school. Were you naturally just incredible, or just brag a little?
I was considered a mutant in the Charles Xavier School of Exceptional Children, and I escaped. And I'm trying to be nice. We're trying to break out of this funk any way we can, folks.
I know.
So, honestly, yeah. I mean, I was born with this. It was both a blessing and a curse. Ever since I can remember the earliest stuff around 4 years old. Thank you. 4 years old. The usual thing of drawing on things I wasn't supposed to, but my parents could tell, well, he's making something. I see what it is. It isn't like he's
pretty
scribbling.
good.
Well, my scribbles I was a storyteller. I've always, to this day, I consider myself a storyteller, no matter what, no matter all the accolades I've had and whatever achievements I've had. It's about being a storyteller.
Yeah.
And even when I didn't know how to say that, I've learned that that's basically that's what turned me on. Everything I drew, I can tell you the story behind it. And that freaked people out, especially when you're a child. I was called out, my first official criticism of where my parents knew, oh, God, he's not going to be a doctor or an astronaut, was kindergarten. And I'm in class, and I remember it clearly, because they gave you the construction paper. All that stuff is stuck in your mind, those little moments, the paste and crap and the color and the crayons. And I couldn't wait to start drawing because I had this vision in my head. My father and I had watched an old Errol Flynn Western called, remember this, it's going back to the Western thing again. We watched the General Custer story called They Died with Their Boots On. And it made such an impression on me at 5 years old. Also, right after that, we watched War of the Worlds. So I did my version, And it's sci-fi war of the worlds, H.G. Wells, Martians attacking the Earth. Has nothing to do with cowboys and Indians, right? Ha. I drew all that. I drew Custer's Last Stand
Wow.
and Crazy Horse attacking Martian tripods.
At 5.
And
This is 5 years old.
this is 5 years old. It scared the teacher so much she had my parents come to school. And I remember her telling, they use my government name, which I won't repeat. It's easy to find, but I'm not going to repeat it.
Okay.
We'll just say Chuck is drawing some very disturbing things, a lot of violence, because I drew blood too. I was into it. I drew the blood. I drew the Martians zapping people, horses, Native Americans, cavalry, didn't matter. it was my vision.
And it was too good. Like, it wasn't like the way you see most kids draw, I'm sure. Like, this was
if
good.
They could tell, I remember the teacher asking me twice to explain it because they kept bringing more teachers in. And I remember, keeping the story consistent because that was my story. I didn't want to mess up. And I didn't care. I mean, you're 5 years old. You really don't know the rules. But I remember them saying they could tell what I was drawing and they couldn't figure out where it came from. And my mother proudly went, "He's an artist." And that's what kind of like sealed my fate. And so there was always push toward our curriculum, even though we really didn't have our curriculum. So I was really 100% kind of self-taught on what I observed and what I saw and what impressed me. And then I would draw it and I would get in trouble sometimes. Very few times I was actually applauded by it. A lot of times I had artwork torn up my face. But it made me, and this is a key thing of what we're facing right now, you learn to fight. You learn to rebel. You realize that the thing I had against them, they can tear up your artwork, but the secret is I can draw it again and I can make it better.
Your talent is untouchable. Yeah.
I just kept doing it, and the more they tore it up, the more I found secret ways of doing it. With hours of me sabotaging from second to third to fourth to fifth grade of me sneaking my artwork out as my protest, me finding my voice, finding my vision, until I got into art classes and it was really not uncomfortable. It was unsatisfying because they weren't pointing me in the direction I wanted to go. I didn't learn how to draw from life until I went to college. And it's a shame. Kids should be drawing from life. If he can draw, he should be shown how to draw at that time of when he finds awareness. He should be made aware. Draw from life. Look at people. You're sitting in a McDonald's. There's your perfect models right there. You don't need them, naked or wearing a weird costume setting on a pedestal. You really don't. You stop, you can go anywhere. And I started noticing things, details. My father would point out things to me. He was a construction worker, but he was always fascinated by stuff. And he'll point out a particular type of truck. Or the day he taught me how horses worked. We looked at a horse and I used to draw him without legs. Again, I'm 5, 6 years old. And he would patiently tell me, they got these legs, these things. And so I realized, he was giving me permission to go that far. I didn't know. I just thought, draw whatever I wanted. Now I knew that there was a rule. You see it, you need to draw it as it is, even if you didn't get it right. But that was part of the artist. You always try to get it. So anyway.
At what age, and this is a question for both of you because I can't draw, so I'm just in awe of artists. At what age do you start because to me the most amazing thing about beautiful artwork is understanding light. And at what age did you guys start understanding that and perspective and light? Like, that's where I am lost. I can copy something or whatever, but none of that is intuitive to me.
I'll be honest. I didn't start understanding light until I turned 47.
No, I mean, that's why I'm asking, because
I'm serious.
It's such an advanced
I mean, we say that I'm like still like kind of begrudgingly like, I wish I learned how to paint. It's weird. You can learn how to paint, but is it what you really want to do? I mean, I had painters who were ex-students of Jackson Pollock, and I hated what they were trying to show me. And it had nothing to do with the question you're asking, Tara, which was very legit. I had to learn about light on my own. I had to see things that I liked and ask, why did I like them? And then you do what every young artist does. You copy it. You copy it to understand it. Until somebody who understands comes in and say, okay, see what you did there? You're doing this when you really should. Like, obviously, the best way to look at light is kind of looking at a round surface. How light I mean, that I learned young, that light
bends. It goes around something, it accentuates. You can put something in front of light, it blocks, but then it also reflects. Reflections, what we're talking about. I mean, those things, and then I found books, and then that opened up doors. But you got to have a curiosity. So the curiosity was always there. The knowledge about it, like I said, around 47 is when I finally felt like, okay, I know what this is now. I know what to do with this. I'll play around with it. And I'm joking, but I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
That was the first time I felt
sense.
comfortable trusting my instincts, or at least what I've learned all those years about this thing.
Where did you study art? I didn't even ask you that.
I didn't go to art school.
Okay.
We had one. I mean, I grew up in Detroit. There were a couple. Unfortunately, for other I never understood the full circumstance, but I was not put into that area of where strong art direction. On the other hand, I was really grateful for the people who did find me. I had a couple of teachers in junior high who started putting me in we had special classes, which I kind of hated. I really wanted to be around other artists who thought like I did. I didn't meet them until much later. But, I had people who wanted to do the pretty cute stuff. That's great for them. I really wanted to know illustration. The word I learned later, what I really turned me on was illustration. And there was no place to teach me. And so even through high school, it was research all the time. Probably why I loved libraries, because when I found books and found there were books that did talk about this stuff, it would have been great to have heard it from an actual artist and heard how they apply it, so I wouldn't have to hurt my head for the next 30 years figuring out how light works.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I had to just trust the person who wrote the book, that they knew something I didn't know. And because often when I'm sitting in class, I did not get that direction, or the direction wasn't as strong and clear as I needed.
Right.
Which was okay, because if I didn't push, I don't think I would have been an artist. I would have quit and done what most people do. That's too hard. Or I don't want to do it. I want to do my way, and then they'll stay where they are. But if you want it to grow, you got to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable.
That's like a life lesson that we all probably wish we had learned really young. Yeah.
What's fun, you're saying you don't draw, and I'm thinking, you're an actress, you're an artist. That's still a part. You have a different instrument.
It's a different instrument, but
it's a different instrument, but I would bet we talk, hey, Tara, how did you start as an actress? What made you want to be an actress? I bet we find similarities.
Absolutely. Like, and we talk about this so much on this podcast. It's like, it's all about living a creative life for, I think, people like us. And it's not always, it doesn't always look like what we thought it was going to be. It's adjacent, it's close. But, I agree. But we're still lucky that we're living these creative lives, because I would be miserable, I think, doing something. I don't know how to do anything else.
Oh, there I am in the light.
Oh, there's your light.
One day I'm going to get.
After all this talk about light.
I'm not used to having a headphone, so I feel like I'm Red 5 standing by right now. But on the other hand, it's like, it's kind of cool. So sorry about the light. Sorry.
I love it. No, it's good.
Let me work that out. I'm still working. I just found some artwork of mine, and so I'm in the middle of playing Indiana Jones in my office and finding work that I haven't seen in over 40 years. So
I was talking with Tara before, because I was just at my parents' house for the first time in a while, and some of my freshman year college paintings were out, and I don't know, kind of the opposite of it belongs in a museum stance on them. I was just like, I thought I was good then. It was But,
well, here's a fun fact about Steve. Steve was a kid entering the 4Kids art contests. He was watching the shows and entering. He was a finalist.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God! So in other words, you were a kid then, and now you're making me feel very old.
Well,
I know. Sorry, Steve's here to make us feel old.
And then I was a teenager, but I was a youngin.
Well, the sick part, we all start somewhere. So that's all good. No, that's cool. Actually, I'm really happy to hear that. I mean, there are some good things that came up working at that place, and that's the people I meet who tell me how much they were inspired, that makes up for so much. And that's the reason we do what we do.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad we had that effect on you.
Well, speaking of 4Kids, I would love to know how you got your job there. And especially because now we should remind people, this was the first new animation 4Kids was doing. They had been primarily just a dubbing facility, kind of. So how did they find you? Walk us through this.
It was, I'm going to try to keep this simple. I do tend to go off. So I'm trying to.
It's an audio podcast. Go for it.
I'm glad. Okay, good. Okay. Well, honestly, they found me at the last minute. I understand they have wasted a couple of years on the production of this thing, or trying to get it into production. And I was not aware of it, didn't care. As the time, I think I forgot where I was. I think I was at BKN, and I may have been in the end of, I know Spawn was over with. I had already done animated Spawn, and now I'm at BKN, and I'm doing this kind of Harry Potter ripoff, as well as a revival of King Kong, both very unsatisfactory. Actually, Kong was more unsatisfactory than the Harry Potter ripoff, because I really love King Kong. And I really hated what we had to do. And by that time I was in my, what I call garbage man mode of, they give you crap, you take it out. You try to make it the best you can, but it was crap. But in other words, I was at a crossroads where I was really like, I really want to work on better stuff. And in this business is who you know. If you don't know the right person, you got to get into the right clique, the right person, networking. So anyway, just giving where I was.
Yeah, no, this is good. You're setting the stage. I love it.
So I remember, and we're coming to the end of the show. So I was just cutting and having shows edited, get ready for air. And so it's coming to the end, and I'm thinking, where do I go? It's hard to get into WB. I mean, as much as I worked on a lot of DC comic books, I was always honestly treated pretty low toward by Warner Brothers. I was never, ever brought in to do something other than work under someone. And some people I enjoyed working under, some I didn't. And
that's the way.
And I remember going, okay, I got to go back there because they're doing the best stuff. But good God, man, I'm so tired, especially when you have been a leader and you're asked to step back and take a lesser role. That's happened so many times when I've taken 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. And I remember being home, watching a movie after a day of work, and I think it was around midnight, and I get a phone call, kind of frantic, by Carol
Weitzman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, now I know I'm getting old because I used to rip out her name so fast. Now it's like Carol. Anyway.
No, I think it's superhuman, the people that do. I remember everybody's
It's weirder
names,
to remember. Yeah. Yeah.
My brain is Velcro, as my buddy and I joke about it. I've had so much crap stuck that it's now getting in the way of the stuff that I should have let go. So I can remember guys and specific movies and things, but it's like, oh, wait a minute. What was the name of that guy who played who? Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, I'll think of the name.
Thank God for IMDb. Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
No, seriously.
IMDb is my buddy. It's like Google. ACL, my artist, Google's your friend. Make it your friend. So IMDb is your other friend. Carol calls up frantic, and she.
Did you know her already at this point?
Never heard of her.
Okay.
Never heard of her. I know of her. Actually, I knew of her because I knew at one time she had worked with Hasbro. I have worked with Hasbro a couple of times. Either time was not a happy time. Hasbro was not my favorite, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
That's how it works. The first time was doing G.I. Joe at DIC. And like I said, not terrible, but it was a very difficult show. Second time later on, that I won't name, but it was not a fun time. And but
very diplomatic, yes.
It was. That one was worse actually. But anyway, yeah. In life, you find if you can count how many worse times you've had, and this goes past 5, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always think, like, even with my voiceover, like, if for every 5 jobs, I really love one of them, like, because I do a lot of audiobooks. I'm like, so for every 5 bad books, I do 1 great book. That's okay.
Yeah.
And this is validating to hear right now.
You're going to go through a lot. I mean, if I had to sit down and tell you a lot of I have way too many stories. I have people saying you should do this and you should write that down. I goes, no, not really. I'd rather give you the memory of the best stuff. And you can go on forever about the bad stuff.
Of course,
but if you're smart, you just sit back and go, hey, man, I learned something from that. Besides the fact I got out with my fingers and toes.
Yeah.
If I got out and I'm still standing, that taught me something.
Well, and I think the toughest thing, and Steve and I have talked about this, and we can tap into this later or now, is knowing when to walk away from certain things. That's a life lesson. Yeah. No, it's a big deal. So, okay. So you get this
anyway,
frantic call.
I get a call from Carol. Carol was telling me in a spew. I mean, she's just letting it all out. She represents 4Kids. My boss, who was going to be my boss at the time, who was coming up to being my ex-boss, actually recommended me. That's what shocked me. She recommended me because we used to butt heads a lot of everything. We got along, but we butt heads a lot. And at BKN, and for her to recommend me surprised the hell out of me. But I did make a reputation I did a lot of I used to be like Mr. Wolf from Pulp Fiction. There was a problem. They call me. I don't like that, but I
came through. Yeah.
You learn. You get a check. And so this was a similar problem as Carol was telling me about turtles. And so the long story short, needed some way to come to New York, put turtles together. They got X amount of weeks left. I asked, well, where did you start? Because it always pisses me off that they never call me at the beginning. They always call me a problem. And sure enough, that's when she said, well, we've had a while. And then I found out, wait a minute, you had 2 years of development of this? It's freaking turtles. Why does it take you 2 years on this?
Wow.
And, which impressed her because she was like, you're not intimidated by it? And I'm like, lady, God, I drew Justice League for a living. I went through this. I worked at Deke. I created Captain Planet. Just say you work at Deke is like saying, wait a minute, you got through World War II? I mean, I used to look at all my shows as theaters of war. Deke was World War II. And it was also crazy. Vietnam, too, but that's another story.
All rolled into one.
All rolled into one. It was like he got through one theater of war. Hey guys, we're going to Saigon. Shit. I curse? I can curse.
Yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, thank you. I speak French really, really fluently.
Excellent.
So yeah, what the fuck's going on with that? Anyway, so Deke, my 8 years of Deke, which was what brought me into animation, taught me so much. One of the things you didn't ask me about was all the roles I had was as development artist.
Oh.
This is where I learned to put shows together. In development, we were brought ideas and we would visualize them. And then you sell those visuals to a network, to a buyer, and that's how you create a show. And one of the biggest shows I had developed and kind of got my name. Well, I didn't get my name on it, but it opened the door for me becoming a director was Captain Planet.
Okay.
Most people don't know I was one of the guys who created Captain Planet. And
because IMDb is completely, You
can't go into all that, and there's a lot of people who are taking credit for it, but they just directed it. But I was there at the beginning that gave Captain Planet his freaking origin, the people who are going to be in it. I actually shamed the creator from using one word over another because I told her kids are going to turn off if they heard this word. So you have to find the allegorical other one. And that's why the character now says heart instead of love. And it was really
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Mati, he was supposed to say love, and I cringed, and she went, "What?" Because I had to put myself in the head of a 10-year-old.
Yeah,
a 10-year-old girl can say it, but a 10-year-old boy won't say that.
Right, but you're so right that I should have known that because development background is really one of the things that majorly qualifies you to come in and solve this problem.
Yeah, because it was that means you work with not only it's more than just the art. Now we're in the territory of showrunner. Mm-hmm. Visualizing what's going to be said, how is it going to be said, how it's going to be put together, how are we going to do this, what type of acting, but also what kind of characters. Pardon me, it's my old friend Scam Likely. Who I constantly put on block, but because I love hearing his voice so much.
I think you should have picked it up on the podcast.
Oh, no.
Yes, we should.
I have a method I told my little sister to do when they call you up. you will say something like, hello, this is, well, she's in Detroit. This is Detroit Police Department Scam Division. I'm sorry, we have your number on our records as being pornographic. Who am I speaking to? Can I speak to your manager? They hang up really fast. They don't know. If you do it right and you say it fast enough, you sound official.
I like to just go the opposite way and be really excited to talk to them. Like,
You can do
scam
anything.
likely. Oh my God, hi!
Yeah, mess with them. That's my. I
So
figure,
happy to
hey,
hear from you.
they're messing up your day. You have a right to give it back to them.
All right,
This is
sorry.
what you do when you're not employed.
Sorry, podcast listeners, we have digressed because his phone beeped. But okay, back on track. Carol called you. You have all
Carol
of
calls
this
me.
experience.
Yes. Carol spends the next hour telling me her woes. I mean, I don't get a word in until an hour after. Blah. And she ends it, tremendously with, when can you come? And I goes, whoa, 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 whoa. um, first, why are you doing it in New York? Two, what do you think I want to do this for? Well, you did all these things. Yeah, but, now what I did tell her at the time was I knew Turtles. Of course you did. When you worked in comics, everybody knew Turtles. Was I a fan of Turtles? I didn't care. I thought Turtles was one of those properties that got very lucky, and good for them. No problem. No, nothing against them. But it wasn't something I go, oh, I want to draw them. No. Dude, I drew Batman.
Okay.
Why the hell would I want to draw that? So
Okay. So stylistically, because I know you spoke before about the different styles of it, where does Turtles fall in that spectrum then?
Well, see, that's how she hooked me in, because she went, well, here's our problem. We had guys try to follow what was done. They didn't want to do the Fred Wolf, which was successful, but the Cowabunga Teenage Mutant, very merchandise PR crap. They didn't want to do that. They really wanted to get it closer to the essential, what the comic really was.
Okay.
Which I did respect. I did respect that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a fan of the look, but I respected where they came from. I respected their success, which is a key thing here. You don't have to be in love with something, but you damn well better have respect for it and you better understand it. And I understood that, especially when she said, we want to make it a little more edgier. Mm-hmm. And Carol wasn't used to these words because she had worked at Hasbro, but it was funny to hear her say, yeah, I kind of want it like, so you want it edgy? Yeah, I want it like that. And you want it kind of super, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, here's the thing. If I do this, I need you guys to get out of the way and let me do it. But, I'm not interested in following. Well, first thing that she said that Warner Brothers had already was contracted to do it. And then they kind of dropped the ball or sold it off or something. And I asked, well, let me see what they've done so that I don't want to waste your time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not even agreeing to this until I see what was done before.
Right.
And if this is something that I could do better, or if I thought they did a better job, I would advocate to follow them. It already made me nervous that, wait a minute, whatever they did, this is Warner Brothers, whatever they did, you didn't like it. Then I saw it and went, yeah, I see the problem. And I told them what the problem was. And I said, the boards were I've learned as a board artist to tell stories from really good guys and some really bad guys. And again, by this point, I'm directing, so I know a bad board when I see it. Mm-hmm. And what I saw was pretty pictures that they drew it like a comic book. And I was already one of those guys and I learned from Spawn too. You don't draw it as a comic book. You got to draw this cinematically. You got to make this something that the animators can translate and move. If you're giving them stuff that doesn't work, then you are defeating the purpose of animating it. And I've had too many shows, way too many shows like that. One in particular was called Double Dragon. I went through hell doing 2 seasons of trying to translate that, especially when we didn't have a dedicated sport team or a dedicated board artist, period. Yeah. Meaning I had to just grab who I could. And
what were some of these boards looking like? Were they just crazy angles, like too many bird's eye view shots? Or
I'm not going to out the person who did it, so I knew their shtick because I knew what they did. And on paper, you go, "Oh yeah, well that guy." But again, what I didn't see, and apparently I pressed Carol, was that again I didn't see this cutting clearly to be different than what was done before. If you took what they did, and try to animate it, you're going to wind up getting basically the same thing you had before, but messier. Because you're not giving the animators any real rules on what to do. Like I told her, I want to see shadows. I want us to work with shadows. I want them coming in and out of shadows. We may have moving shadows. This she agreed to. Later on, this was stuff that got, let's say, contention because it cost money. Oh, they didn't want to know. See, at the time, they were desperate. They were happy to do it. And all of a sudden, when they realized, wait a minute, this is quality, and quality costs money. Oh, Jesus, we're putting more money into this. And I'm like, yeah, you have to.
I'm going to ask a layperson's question.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So when you say shadows cost money, what does that mean? It means more
some shows, more work time.
Okay.
More animation, more drawing, more figuring out the animation, timing on the animation, style. Again, what I looked at and went, well, again, if I'm looking at the old comic book was very stylized. Getting away from that they weren't that good, it didn't matter. This is what their audience liked. And I thought, all right, whatever that was, we need to put this into the show. I didn't see that. On the boards, I saw that, but I didn't see that translating to the animators, because that's what a director does. He has to sit there and look at this and say, this works, this doesn't work. This can move, this doesn't. Or if it can't, what's the solution? And I didn't see that in the boards. You can. You'll see it in the notes. You'll see it in how it's progressing sequentially. I didn't see that. I just saw a lot of pretty pictures like a comic book and thought a layman would be really impressed. Sure. I've done development. This is what we did in development. We did pretty pictures, showed them, and they went, oh my God, I want that show. And then you get the show and you have it drawn. And then by the time it comes back in animation, it doesn't look like what you showed us in the presentation. That's what I wanted to avoid. That was the lesson. That was the second biggest lesson I learned from working at Deke. Don't develop something that you can't deliver. Because I did a lot of times when I developed things I couldn't deliver, or I knew we couldn't deliver, but nothing we can say about it. So that was strike one, seeing that. Strike two was, again, my biggest problem was, you want me to come to New York and do this. You're telling me all the artists that you've used are from LA. The smart thing to do would be to bring it to LA, because this is where 99% of people who I know who can draw the way I'm talking about are. And they would love to have this opportunity to try this, because they're more fans of Turtles than I was. But again, she said, I can run it my way. And I wanted to make this, I wanted to nod to anime that I loved. At the time, I was much more of an aficionado of an anime. I was consuming anime a lot.
Oh, wow. What kind of stuff are you talking about? The Miyazaki stuff?
Miyazaki, but also looking at, I'm just going to throw show names. I was looking at a lot of Gundam. I was looking at a lot of little odd things. There was always Ninja Scrolls. I mean, Ninja Scrolls, we beat the hell out of that on Spawn, because I wanted Todd to see, now look at this. This guy did this, and he put these dark shadows in, and we can do this on Spawn. And so I was looking at things like that, and they were not only just looking at them to repeat, but to learn from. That was the other side. I wasn't just looking at it to rip it off. I wanted to learn what they did. Japanese animation was amazing for that reason. What happened, what got me with Carol was, as soon as she said she wanted this to be, that excited me, because very rarely I had someone come to me and say, hey, you get to create this show the way you see it, as opposed to, hey, they screwed up, can you follow what they did and get it done?
Right.
So I was kind of hooked because of that. But again, my biggest problem was, I have to go to New York. What about the people I need? I don't know anyone in New York. Yeah. And from what I saw, there wasn't people who were available to do it.
And also, again, this was a studio that had not made a new original animation before. So that must have been a red flag, or at least a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, we were on the phone for a good 2 hours, just going over this stuff before I even said I'll be interested. In fact, I didn't want to. I threw it at my agents, and my agents came after me. You should do it. You should do it. And,
I mean, did the fact that this was a place that was doing anime, did that affect you at all? Since you were a fan of anime, did that influence your decision?
I mean, again, I've been at Deke. Deke has always had a reputation of, let's say, certainly not a respected reputation. And so what 4Kids was doing to me was a bargain basement version of Deke.
Okay.
I mean, Deke had the first to take Sailor Moon and cut their scenes up. I seen stuff on Sailor Moon that would make you go, you would scream, Tara, if you've seen some of the stuff that Sailor Moon actually had. that was never aired.
Right.
The Japanese audience were
Americanizing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember the cigarettes, the drinking, the shooting, the shots on the girls' dresses. This was all normal for Sailor Moon, and I seen it cut out. So it's an exercise in editing. It's an exercise in rewrite. Everything 4Kids was doing, but what they weren't doing, which I was telling Carol, you're not producing. You're talking is producing from scratch, being creators. That's why I don't want to I'm not going to agree to this and walk into you guys sitting behind playing backseat driver. That will come back later. But but I was like, we're going to create this show. I'm going to create this the way I would if I was in LA. And I was trying to very strongly convince them to move the production to LA. The big reason I heard we couldn't was because Peter Laird, who was in charge and was one of the creators of Turtles, didn't like to fly. So he wasn't going to fly to LA to see anything. And I got to meet Lloyd after I started talking to him. And Lloyd and I got along. I liked this.
So for our listeners, Lloyd Goldfine, you can go back and listen to his interview, but he was the producer on the show. He was the producer,
writer on the show.
Yeah.
He was basically, and go break it down to terms now, he really was the showrunner. And I, as supervising director, and that was where we had a problem of, okay, what is my role? And this was something that if I was in LA, I wouldn't have had as much friction with, but I had a lot of friction with them, which was, okay, are you just a hired hand? Are you just somebody who would just tell we want, and then we're just going to run over you? Or am I the guy saying, no, that doesn't work? And you listen to me. I preferred the latter. They gave me that, but I had to fight for it tooth and nail. And sometimes butt heads with Lloyd. But as we talked, that's the process.
Right. Well, I was going to say there's a healthy amount of debate. Yeah.
You're going to hold hands and y'all, kumbaya. It's a creative process is like any relationship. There's a struggle. There's a tug of war. But you're lucky and you trust each other. And I did trust Lloyd. I liked Lloyd. I liked where he was going. We both had simpatical feelings about whether the violent part, he would sometimes even push me to go. And there was parts with
interesting.
We had an issue with standards and practices where they started whining about, well, the Turtles are riding these cars and they should always put on seatbelts. And it's like, okay, it's a given. But now they're on motorcycles. They got to wear helmets. I said, have you looked at these guys? You got to put a helmet on them. And it was like, okay, once. But now all the time, there's wait a minute. They're climbing 15-story buildings, jumping from roof to roof. You're not bitching about that, but you're bitching about on a motorcycle. He's got to have a helmet. And there was a couple of shots where, like, I remember going through the because I boarded along with another artist the opening title sequence. Okay. And there were some things in there where I remember them going, well, could he have a helmet? And I'm like, oh my God, lady, this is symbolic, okay? So I snuck a helmet on one shot and the rest was like, screw him, and Lloyd backed me up, and so that was good. But that's later on down the line. I'm still not out of LA yet.
When she pitched this to you, was it as being a little edgier for Saturday mornings? Like you knew this was going on TV Saturday mornings. I knew
as they said, they had their own network. That was part of her spiel. They bought the WB thing, and they're making the Fox box, whatever the hell it's called, and they're going to make it their thing. And all this I didn't care about. All I care about was what am I allowed to do? What do you want me to do? And what am I allowed to get away with? That's all I cared about, and where we're going to do this. Mm-hmm. That was the three important. I take it back. How much are you going to pay me to do this? Because we got to get real. Absolutely.
Right. There's
I didn't want to relocate. That was the most. Yeah. I didn't want to relocate, not just because I was settled, because again, in reality, the people I needed to get this done would have been a lot easier if I was able to stay in LA and I could have cherry picked exactly who I needed to get the job. Going to New York meant I had to also not only put on I know I'm art directing and I know I'm directing it, but now I got to teach. This is what burnt me out later on about teaching in general, is that all the shows I've had to teach to a certain degree. What you want is people who get the job done. And it's great when you can teach them, but you also want them to teach you, or at least do the job enough so that, okay, I can focus on other things. I know this is taken care of. because I remember her saying, well, do you want other directors? And I'm thinking, no, this is such a mess right now. Why would I want to bring on other directors when I'm still
There's
trying
already too many cooks.
kind of carve out I'm trying to carve out my position with you guys and get everything straight, because again, I'm being liberal. I think it was more like 5 years of development they screwed up, but I'm being nice and say 2 years. That's still too long. So I'm like, I'm going to bring other people in and we got to go through. And no, right now it's just me, Lloyd, convincing Peter this is where we're going to go, and then getting the people I need to get that up and running. In my mind, I was old school. I mean, we did 26 episodes easily and do it. But in my brain, it was like, if we can't get the first 12 done, there's no show. So I was just focused on 12 shows in my mind. And they're already talking about in year 3, we're going to do this. I'm like, you don't even have a year 1 yet, which is why our schedule was so pushed, because again, how much time did they lose? 2 years. So the agents talked me into it. They threw it on I be honest, a lot of money. I reluctantly agreed, and then Lloyd came back and went, wow, if you only held out for another hour, I was going to convince them to let me go to LA, and then we're going to do it your way. And to this day, I'm mad about that. I wish the hell I would have
why'd you say that?
Oops.
I got played, and it was like, damn, I remember so pissed. A friend of mine my agents were packing me up, and they were like, it's going to be good, Chuck. I'm going, you traitorous dogs, you should have held out. I wouldn't have to be packing. I wouldn't have to be going back. I started in New York. This was 2003. I started in New York in 80.
In the comic book industry. Yeah.
And left in 84. Okay. So I have not been back in New York since 84. Was not looking forward to it. I had my list of what I wasn't going to put up with, and I told them I wasn't going to live here. I knew not to go. I used to live in Alphabet City, so don't put me in Alphabet City. Don't. This has nothing to do with the creation of Turtles, which you asked. This is the first time I had a list of demands. I gave them a list of demands. They made it. They got me an apartment. Down the street in Chelsea.
Right. So, easy commute.
And that was the reason I told him, because look, you guys don't get it. This is not me sitting around dubbing. And I have not seen the dubbing facilities. I just been around dubbing because I've been editing all the time. And I'm like, look, I'm going to be there a lot, just going over boards, going over tracks, talking about this. I knew I'm going to be involved with the music, blah, 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 blah. And also I wasn't going to be used being at a post house that I'm used to, because everything is there. This is before me even seeing it. So that's why I threw this list of demands of, all right, I need to be able to be within walking distance of this place, so that if I had to come back, I won't mean me having to come in from Jersey or coming in from here.
If you're living at this studio.
Yeah. So they did. And I had less than a month to get my affairs together and fly there. I was always on the phone. From that moment, I was on the phone with Lloyd daily about stories. We haven't even started.
Was stuff being faxed at this point, or were you able to email things at this point?
No, we were faxing. I wasn't. We weren't starting to email yet. This is where it gets fuzzy, because I can't even remember when we even. I don't think he even had Cintiqs at the time. I think we were still doing paper boards. So, or excuse me, non-digital. So,
fair.
And I wanted my artist, a guy who I've worked with here, to help me develop the look, because that was a key thing. That was the other thing. When I said, all right, all said and done, what do you have done? And that's when she sheepishly went, 2 years and nothing. We want you to come here and pick the look. So it was like, oh man, what is? So I didn't see any art, but I insisted I had a guy here that I worked with. So he and I started playing around with ideas based on what I knew, my talks with Lloyd over how the look of the show and the direction of the show. I was telling Lloyd, okay, I want us to start looking at Kung Fu movies and thinking of that. Lloyd knew what I was talking about, which helped a lot. More than helped. That was great. That's also said, okay, we're on the same page. We're together on this. Kung Fu movies, samurai films, this is stuff that we can get away with that the old shows couldn't. I knew we weren't going to be violent, but we're going to be on the level of Batman the Animated Series. So there's action here. That's why I said to Lloyd, whenever they bring up the V word, we're going to always turn around and call it action, you know.
Smart. Yeah.
So that way
Yeah.
they'll get indoctrinated what we're talking about and not be so prejudiced with, oh, there was violence. Oh, no, it was action. You know, there's 5 men. No, it's action. You know?
Well, Lloyd was telling us how like you could do stuff to robots, but not people. So he would like, or like the real damage to a human would be done right off camera.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that was
like
the other
you
trick.
guys learn tricks.
Oh, yeah. Like on G.I. Joe, I used to say, on G.I. Joe, we had those strict rules. And I said, all right, we're going to try to get away with a 2-punch thing. Characters can punch a guy 2 times, and that's it. They got to throw them, blah, 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 whatever. But I wanted this to feel, it gave an illusion of edgy. So with Turtles, I went, oh, good. Now we're going to take that same G.I. Joe rule and screw it around with it. Now you get 3 kicks or 3 punches. And always at the chest level, never on the head. You can do whatever the hell you want with a robot. But the trick is, again, we weren't playing it safe like Murakami Wolf. So the foot guys were not robots. They were ninjas, not personalized. We just like stormtroopers. Everybody knows stormtroopers are humans. We just never see them with their helmets off. So to me, the Foot Clan had to be the same way. But again, the rule of you hit them here, hit them 3 times. And that's why I said, okay, this is why we got to choreograph the action. We're just not going to have bump, bump, bump. And we looked at I've looked at enough of the old Turtles and went, they gave you the illusion of that, but there was none of the timing. And I wanted that timing to be snappy because this is, I want them to look at this and go, this is what Ninja Turtles should be. Also, to give credit is due, the live action Ninja Turtle movie had been out earlier. That was my other inspiration. I really love that first movie. Can care less about the Vanilla Ice version and all that crap. I always like the first.
The sequels,
that was awful. Everything after
they quickly gave up to compromise after that first movie. Yeah.
And I was told also. I mean, Peter didn't like it, so that helped too. That gave me a lot of, he came into the door already and Lloyd had gave me a heads up. He was already feeling very protective and suspicious, and even with my qualifications. And I like to think, again, I gotten further, but money goes to people's heads. So it's like your success. I get it, but it's not like you've been asked to do other things. I've worked at Marvel. I worked at DC. I've done this. I've done that. So trust me that I know, at least I will give you what I think you want, but I'm also open and I also have my own ideas. So he'll bring up, Asian mythology. I have read a lot of Asian mythology too. So there's a lot of things that I pretended to be stupid on that he was throwing at. I was like, well, we've done this before, but let him think so, and let him roll.
That was
with
smart.
it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I also want to respect that. I respected where he was coming from. I mean, no matter what it came down to, I really respected this is what he wanted to do with Turtles. And that got past my indifference of Turtles. Then it became, I hate to say it, I started making it my Turtles, where I thought, if I'm going to do Ninja Turtles, I want this something fans of mine would go, Chuck touched this, I can tell. He's done this with that. So
like your hallmark on it. Yeah.
And I also wanted to be respectful, again, even though we weren't chums, I wanted to be respectful of his vision.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what a professional does. But also, don't drag me 25,000 miles across country without thinking I'm going to come in without my own ideas. And so we would go back and forth. Actually, I used Lloyd because I felt like if we're all 3 in the room, I felt it was going to get to I tried to cut down as much, or as I said, less mouths in the room. Less, get it just enough where Lloyd was like the wall, and I can tell Lloyd, and then Lloyd would tell it to him. But if I had to tell it to him, I knew there was going to be a brick there. So it's like, okay, let's keep it flowing that way.
Well, so he and Lloyd had those years to develop their relationship.
Yeah, and I'm coming in, and I know it's already going to be I know there wasn't going to be a lot of trust there, but I also didn't want to get it in the way. I wanted it to be like, okay, no matter what, put it this way, I trust me with animation before I trust him. I trust me talking to the studio more than I trust him with it, He can ask for things I knew was like, often he would send models. I went, that's idiotic. But, let me talk to the studio and we'll figure it out. And we did. And he'll take the credit, as most people do. And it's like, as long as he's happy, that's good. We made it work. That's our job. But if I just don't, I'm glad I was here to say that didn't work, because it would have went
Right.
through and caused a lot more trouble.
Well, I mean, I think like with all of us, we're hired guns and we're in service of the project and we pick and choose our battles.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, I saw this as an opportunity of, I didn't have a lot of properties coming to me where there was like, please give me your vision. So I really wanted this to stand out, especially when I knew, and this is the key thing, first day I come into 4Kids, actually the second day. First day I flew in, it was Sunday night, so I had to hang out with the producer and get her version of this. And it was like, okay, I put it this way, I knew it was a shitstorm walking through the door. And then they go in, they show me the artwork, and I swear to God, it's an 8-foot long table, 8-foot long, maybe even 10-foot long table, piled with artwork, a variety of artwork over the 2 years' time of development. Because I asked them again, what is the look of this thing? What are you doing? What? I can't imagine no one's done anything. And I met Antonio Canobio, who was the background designer, background supervisor, really, of it. And he was just relieved. He was like, I can't tell you. And if you know Antonio, he had this thick Italian French voice, and he's, oh my God, the shit they gave me, oh my God. Oh, I'm so glad I seen your work. Oh my God, please help me with this. And I saw what he was talking about. It was they had one director who had done features, and not to knock my feature friends, but if you've not done television, it's a whole different beast. You don't have endless amount of time to explore. You got to hit the ground running, or at least explore in your head and tell people what you're talking about. You don't have time to just draw something. I hate that. Doesn't make any sense to me as an artist. That tells me you don't know what you're doing and you're desperately hoping I'm going to show it for you. And that can be anywhere. It can go all over the place. And that's exactly what they had. So I'm looking at all this work. Some of it was very good. Some of it, none of it was bad. It was just varied. None of it made sense. You couldn't take this character and put it with this background. It didn't fit. It wasn't tailored.
Okay. So tone and style was just all over.
All over.
Okay.
So I said, honestly, throw it out. We didn't keep anything. Put in your files, not a single thing. We're going to start from scratch. By this time, I knew that I'd be hiring guys from LA, and also knew I had to develop a key team. Like Antonio was gold, having him. He was going to leave, and he stayed. So I was blessed to have him. And he and I joked immediately on what to do with the backgrounds, because I already had a character and how to go with the characters in my head. And then I had a guy in LA start it, and he and I have worked together on shows before. So he knew my shorthand. So the only problem is he couldn't, again, we had no time. 4Kids, I come in on a Monday, they're expecting to see models by Tuesday. Or
what year is it? What year is this? Like
this
month,
is 2002. I came in, I think, over. Yeah.
Oh my God.
The show premiered in early 2003.
I've read somewhere when someone was, I think it was the Big Turtle book. It was, Chuck was burnt out. You got to realize, from the time I sat down on that show and we got the first season done, and they immediately went into production on the second season. This is the danger when you are your own network, because there was no realism of a break and understanding what we needed. They just wanted product. I saw that coming down the road and went, okay, only way I can stop this is to stop it realistically and say no. Because they were already talking about changing the look of the show. And I'm like, why? Well, because, kids, one thing, we got a show and we have a look here. You're establishing it. Remember, turtles haven't been seen in 10 years. This is going to freak people out. I put muscles on these guys. I put edge on these guys. We got action scenes that most people went, wow, I didn't know you can do that. And now you're going to change it? It makes no.
It was working.
Lloyd agreed, but Lloyd was also trying to follow what the bosses want, and all they were doing is the same attitude I saw what they were doing with Pokémon. Was that we can just cut and paste and cut and paste. No, we're drawing this from scratch. Until they actually saw the amount of work we were doing, then it got realistic. It bothered me that it took us doing this, and instead of the 2 years they were wasting in development, that didn't tell them anything. That should have told him something, but it didn't.
Right.
It wasn't until we're now inside the damn offices. We're now taking up space. We're now drawing crazy. We're now, always under a deadline. Me doing a lot of cutting through a lot of red tape. I didn't have time to sit and experiment. I threw out colors with, that was the other thing. I couldn't even work with colorists I was used to. But I was grateful that I worked with Beatrice's, I can't think of her company. She came in, she was like Antonio was a goddess. If I didn't have those two, I wouldn't have been able to, they were the glue to help me put it together. So Beatrice's colorist and her company, she did it first and then her people helped later. But we started working out color style on how to do the show. And I was telling them, okay, I want this to feel like a comic book, but a graphic comic book. I don't want this. And this is what was done on the storyboard, going back to that original storyboard that Warner Brothers did. Again, I saw that on the board. I didn't see their thinking on how to translate into animation. That's the difference between what we did and what they did. They didn't even get that far. I did see an animatic, and I didn't see anything near there. And I went, all right, we got to hit the ground running with this already set up. And now I can say it, the reveal was, I had no idea this was all going to come together. I knew when the film comes back, that's going to tell me anything. And if they liked it, I don't care if I liked it or not. If they liked it, we're going to go. Luckily, the film came back and it looked like I imagined it.
Okay.
So I can go, yes, I wanted it that way. No, I was faking it as we would go because I did not have the time to experiment. I couldn't.
Well, and what was going on with scripts at this time? Like when you got there, had Lloyd already written a number of scripts?
I think he had 2 or 3. And that was the other thing was that, we would go over the scripts and then he and I would talk out the stuff and I would say, okay, it's got a little talky here. Well, Peter wants that. And he goes, yeah, but how do we approach that? Maybe go back and say, hey, this is what we want to do visually. And now what I didn't want to do was constant talking over action. I've done shows where it's just constant talk, wall-to-wall action, like wall-to-wall freaking music. I want the music to work with the tone. That was different, having to work with an editor who was, the editor kind of wanted to do his own thing, and I'm like, no, I need you to follow what I'm telling you. So
you mean the music editor or the
music editors? That was the thing.
Okay.
The editor we got was great, and was by luck we kind of gelled. He kind of got what I was talking about. Because of our timing, often I had to trust what he was doing. I couldn't go in and experiment, which drove me nuts. So I put a lot of work into the boards, so that whatever we put in the board was going to come back. I couldn't sit there and go, maybe I can take this and this and do that. We didn't have that time. Did not have that time. Didn't have that kind of synergy. No. That's why it was frustrating a lot, but it was constant momentum. That's how I call it. We had constant momentum. We had to constantly keep thinking and moving. And I had to pretend that I already figured this out. So.
Right. And you were happy with what you saw eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Then.
I was, again, it was the big joke later. It was that this came together better. Lloyd, I could tell Lloyd later, this worked, didn't it? And he was like, wow, oh my God. And well, hey, it worked. Music, I was always happy with our music guys. I think that's when I really started feeling, I think Lloyd could say this. So, it'd been nice if he was on the show too, but anyway, I know for me, that's when I felt comfortable finally. Up to that point, I felt like I was just, I've been alone on a lot of things, but this was really tough because I'm 2,500 miles away from anything and people who were my support. And now I'm taking up, I'm bringing new people on and meeting them. I had to fire someone who I liked, but I just felt like he was left to go on his own and he went cartoony. And I was like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so that already kind of made me, okay, he's like, I remember somebody going, well, does he have the call to do that? And before I can say anything, Lloyd's like, yeah, whatever Chuck wants. And I went, okay, I'm going to act on that. But it was tough because I didn't have that trust built in. I was finding as we went. But the music guys immediately made me feel like so welcome. It was like they were starved to be given direction. So here I am saying, okay, we're going to try this. Give me a Japanese oboe as a theme. I want to hear whenever he shows up, don't be afraid to sneak that sucker in there and then go punk with it or something. And they did that. And I remember we did this one part in the theme and it goes, okay, now this is happening in the board. And Lloyd's sitting there just excited because he didn't think about this in the script. And it goes, okay, whenever Shredder's about to torture, whether it's Stockman or a ninja, we're going to cut. I want to hear, and I always, and again, this is where Peter never asked me, but I'm a Japanese file too. I love the old kabuki theater. Love kabuki theater. And I always love that that they used to do. And I want to hear that. I want that when kids hear that, they know Shredder's being bad. And so they
Right.
So and that scene when he puts on the claw and you hear Baxter Stockman go, no, 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 no. And you cut to the outside of his headquarters and you pull back, you hear this, oh, and you know that Shredder is being Shredder. And that was that day we all felt like, man, this is coming together. Because if I had explained this to Al, they wouldn't get it. They'll be sitting there going, no, I've just given you now we got a music theme. Now we got a scheme where we want to go with the theme. And our guys, I can sit back. All they have to do is just create their library. And now we can cut. I forgot who our editor was. He now had the music he can cut and put in place where he needed it.
Right. And you found the people you trusted, which you would have had quickly in LA, but now you found your people there. It would have been
Lightspeed in LA, but now it was like, it was, well, because it was me learning to work with them for the first time, them trusting me. Didn't matter I came in with all these things, didn't matter I came in with an Emmy. I mean, I used to tell the group and they go, well, you got an Emmy. I goes, here's the thing about an Emmy. An Emmy will shut people up, but it also puts a number on your back. It puts a target on your back. It'll shut up arguments, but it won't win the argument. So you got to be careful about that. You got to always have to prove yourself. You have to always be willing to fight. And there were times when I didn't want to fight, but I knew if I let up here, then I become like, and this is where, not to knock what I saw going on, but it is, I saw a lot of those editors who were doing those jobs on those pre-recorded anime shows, on those Pokemon and on those Yu-Gi-Oh shows. There was a lot of guys coming in and out, a lot of producers who came in and they got the job and then 2 weeks later they were fired. And I thought they were just treated like fodder. They were just made to come in and do this. I didn't see them having creative control. That's something I had. So I was not going to allow them to put me in that spot like I'm these guys. I'm not doing the same thing. We're doing bigger than this. As I told I never got to talk to Al until the Christmas party, but I was told this to Lloyd.
I think that was most people.
Most of us, exactly. And that's when I had that moment where I had to figure out. Let's just say I had my moment where I was like, okay, this is surreal. Very kind. Give them that. Very, very kind. But it was like, okay, it's us and them. And I realized then that I kept telling them, you got something special here. You're doing what LA does all the time. No one has produced a show like this. I'm not talking Courage the Cowardly Dog or the other thing that was there, but nobody has done. I think of the Venture Brothers was starting to come up.
Around this time.
Not the same thing. We are the first animated series to do an action adventure in 30-something years. So it's like, not only respect that, but I'm giving you a gem. This is something that if you guys continue, and I was more than happy if I had gotten more, not just encouragement, but backup, support. I would have loved to have stayed and helped them develop more, because that's what I did.
So you stayed for 2 seasons,
I stayed for 2 seasons, and then it got to that point where they wanted to dictate how I was going to live there. And I went, all right, you know what? No amount of money is worth me giving up my freedom. And and also I did not like their plans of they were going to force this change on the show, when I thought we haven't even we got the show established. We're building a clientele, Playmates, a toy company who I've had a passing relationship with. It's the best relationship I've ever had with a toy company. They were so supportive, so excited about anything we did. It got to be a running joke where they would tell me, "We'll take the crap out of your trash because you guys are so good. Even the stuff you throw away, we can still make into toys." And I'm like, if that makes you happy, do it. As long as you don't force me to put it into the show. in the show.
Did you
So-
did you get input into what toys were made? We should get into the toys a little bit now. That's a good segue.
It was funny because they were playing off of us, and they made their suggestions. I had to sit back and case in point was Han, the big villain, the second Shredder's lieutenant. They loved him, and Lloyd and I went through like maybe 50 names before we finally got Han approved. First pass Peter.
I would say, what did they turn down? Like,
oh, I can't remember now.
but like, what were the reasons of turning a name down?
Well, because you want to own you want it to be exclusive. You want it to be something that not only associates with the character, but now we're talking about a copyright, an IP.
Right.
At a time when most people didn't bring those things up, but that's what it is. It's an IP. So you can't call him Lex Luthor because that's owned by DC. So
right. I forgot about this. Yeah.
So we needed to come up with names that they could, they can copyright, but also worked demographically with the design of the character. So we got this big giant Nordic ninja, it's like, he's like White Odd Job. And I wanted to like not make him. And in my mind, he was White Odd Job as a kid. Odd Job from James Bond was the best damn villain. Most kids would say Jaws, but before Jaws, it was Odd Job. And he was just badass. And so I wanted that on that level, but also get away from the old, okay, he's an Asian bad guy. We already got an Asian bad guy. So I made him the opposite. He's like some runaway Viking, street kid who got like a white sumo. And I always loved sumo. And I knew of guys who actually trained in sumo, actually went over and became sumo. And so I went, okay, that's our guy. He's got to be a sumo. But we're not going to give him some name like Tsunami or some crap like that. It's got to be a name like Odd Job, which is sort of
right.
but strange and hit. So the typical names have been Tank, Brick, Block, stupid names like that. And Lloyd and I would just throw it at each other, and it was like, it ain't working. It just ain't working. To this day, this is why I wish he was here. I can't remember how we fell on the Hun. I don't know.
Okay.
I think he was saying, tell me more about this guy. He goes, well, he's this big blonde Nordic Hun, or Nazi,
right.
and the Nazis used to be called Huns, or at least the Germans were. And I don't know why we were giggling. That was the thing I liked about Lloyd. When you work with someone and you're creating and you both are giggling over the same joke, you're on. And we would do that. Even on certain things like, well, okay, we're going to torture Baxter Stockman. We're going to take one piece at a time. I think Lloyd came up with it first and went, can we get away with that? Because we're going to push it. And I went, okay. So we got the joke about which part starts. Does it start at his toe? And then, no, you got to make something, got to be something they can see and go, oh, so it's got to be his eye. So we start that way. And we'd be both giggling, and sometimes, Joel and the producer walk in and go, she just never fit in. And she'd see us giggling over something like that. And, or I show them some Shaw Brothers movie with some outrageous action. It's very violent. And I'm like, okay, send this overseas so they know what kind of stuff we're going towards. And then Carol would freak out like, oh my God, they saw that and they thought you wanted. And goes, Carol, nobody in their right mind is going to show these guys guts hanging out. But I want us to push that level, Right. I would show them stuff. And again, if I got my studios giggling and going, we know what you're talking about, we're all on the same page, because I'm not going to be able to go over there. We didn't have the money to have an overseas supervisor. So
I see. So this will be my last question because I don't
no,
keep you
please.
forever.
No.
But, okay.
Keep going. No, this is fun.
So we're talking so much about the action and the violence.
Yeah.
This show is also really funny.
Yes.
So I'm glad you mentioned the giggling and stuff, because you have this incredibly funny cast too of these great actors. Yeah. So where does the comedy come into this action, adventure, violent stuff? Tonally.
Again, there's that word again. We always avoided saying violent. We always said action, comedy, action.
Yeah.
This. And then the other thing that I and Roy simpatico on was we're talking about the characters. And I went, well, okay, this is, again, the movie did a great job. All I did was adapt what I loved from the movie and then pushed it out. And I went, okay, what I really want to make it really important is that these are 4 brothers. These guys are family. And their adoptive father is, he's dad. He is head muckamuck. But what does brothers do? Well, I have a large family. I have 5 brothers and several sisters. And there's a dynamic in families that I wanted to play out. And I wanted to see that really strong in Turtles. Beyond the whole Mikey likes pizza and
Right.
Raph. It goes, no, Raph was actually the first turtle I designed because as I was reading the script and we were trying to get the voice, I wanted the attitude. And
Mm-hmm.
being in New York again after not being there in 20 years. And again, it was in the script, but you have to take it off the page and find it. And so when I'm hearing these guys, I was glad we had New York actors because I'm hearing that. And
Okay.
then the comedy
Yeah.
came through, but we also we really had to work with them on their, because they would kind of want to get goofy.
Yeah.
Mikey can be goofy, but Leo couldn't be goofy. Raph couldn't be goofy. So when I'm telling them, okay, I want you to go, oh, I want you to put that in there. I want you to pretend you are really doing karate. I don't want this cartoon shit. I always tell my actors,
Right.
I don't want you to sound like a damn cartoon. I want you to sound like you're that character and really work it. And they did. And the comedy, then they can loosen out. But I saw that when you guys would come in, when they would come in and audition, just before they do the reading, the camaraderie, the way they talk to each other, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
give me that energy. The way you and you
Yeah.
guys are talking, you know who they are. I'm not going to name names, but the actor playing Mikey was so much like Mikey, and everybody was so much like everybody. Leo was so much like it. So even
Yeah.
even the actor playing Splinter, because I was upset that we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't find an Asian actor to get across what we wanted. But that
Yeah.
was important to me. Not just because I'm a person of color, but yes, because I'm a person of color. I wanted
No,
authenticity.
I mean, and it wasn't as talked about back then,
It
but it
wasn't.
should have been.
I,
It should, yeah. Thank God it is now, but yeah.
if I couldn't get them, then I wanted people respectful of that. And I
Right.
got lucky that we did. I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. My favorite actor, because they're all one of my favorite. But the
Mm-hmm.
one that I love, I knew coming every time he showed up, it was going to be a joy to listen to him because he was so authentic. Was the actor playing Baxter Stockman?
Who was Baxter? Now
Baxter, he was
I'm gonna look it up while we do
hilarious.
this.
He had the right inflections on the words, the attitudes. I
Gosh,
saw
this
him.
is a guy I don't know. Scott
You
Williams,
know,
it says. So
he was unique.
we'll look at, yeah, that's a new name for us, so that we'll definitely look him up.
He
Yeah, very
was
cool.
his attitude. He just got it. I mean, there were certain people I had to
Yeah,
coach. I didn't have to coach him on day one. He just got it.
he got
I
it.
don't know if he brought himself
Well,
and it
that
just came
room,
through.
I mean, we all talk, all the actors amongst ourselves, and when I interview them, we all talk about how like the buzz around 4Kids was, this is the show you want to work on. Like I
Yeah.
remember my audition, I'm being like, okay, this is the one I want.
Yeah.
Like, and the couple of small characters I got to play were my favorite days working there.
You
I mean,
had you had the first only other female character that
oh, Angel.
yeah, who I
Yeah.
was on. I mean, there was a lot of characters I wanted to bring back. That was one. You didn't play the kid that rap.
Tyler.
Tyler, yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler was
Yeah.
another
I played
one.
Angel.
I
Those
thought
are my
you
two
did.
roles.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Yeah.
Tyler was another
But
of my favorites. I mean, there was.
I
it
was so
fun.
excited though to work on it because you guys made it fun. You showed us the storyboards. That was something
Oh,
we
yeah.
never got
Yeah,
to do.
yeah,
Our
yeah.
the read throughs and like
Yeah.
that was the that
Yeah.
show, like just so you know, from the outsider's point, we all wanted to
Oh,
be part
good.
of it.
I'm so
Like,
glad. Yeah.
and the room was fun, and Sue Blue directed and was great. Like,
Well, Sue.
you guys made that a great place to,
Thank
a
you.
great project to work on.
Thank
So
you. Well, Sue again was an assistance on my side because I've worked with her before. I work with people who taught me shit. And there are two people
Right.
who taught me a lot. Sue was one, and another was Charlie Adler. And I
I
learned
mean, he's
so much.
for those who don't know, he's a voice actor and director in Los Angeles.
He
He's
is
fantastic.
fantastic. I like to call him my friend, but he's been a teacher. The teacher part is where he will blush on, but he has taught me so much watching him and how he worked with actors. So I brought a lot of that energy.
Hmm.
First was Sue. Sue was the one who taught me the most, and Sue was wonderful and showed. I mean, we're doing this all over the phone. That was the other thing. Sue was on the phone.
Right.
We're in the
I
studio.
know that was crazy.
And I remember people walking by. I mean, that was a part that was also kind of fun with Turtles. The way we ran the show did make people realize this is different. This isn't the same crap.
Yep.
And these guys are doing stuff. So when people came out and they're giggling or they go in giggling, they're going, what the hell are they doing? And I remember the night we showed the show when the show came together. I don't think you got to go to that one, did you?
No,
Premiere?
I wasn't there, but that must have been so much fun.
It was nuts because the artists were all excited. Our production people were excited. We got the theme song. I was happy with our
love the
theme
theme
song. I still love our theme song because I always hated the original Turtles song. And so we were playing it, and we got this place on the east side somewhere, some theater. And I can't remember. I'm terrible at all I know is a small theater.
It was a long time ago. You don't need to remember.
Yeah, I was reminded by one of my artists who still talked to me. Was like, dude, that was 20 something years ago. You realize? Because he was 20 when I brought him there.
Right.
Now he's hitting on 40, and I'm like, haha, old man. But but still,
welcome.
He grew up with me. But they were in the audience, and when the movie, because they never seen, all they saw was rushes or pieces of the animatic. They never saw the finished thing brought together. So you got on one side of the aisle all the 4Kids execs, and they're all proper, and I don't get it. It's like, dudes, it's a fucking filming. It's a preview, it's a premiere in a way, but it's just loosen up. These guys, our guys, were loose. So when the thing came on, they started singing, and the energy was great because they knew all the words. Turtles, count them off, 1, 2. And Carol was the only one freaking out. And she's going, shh. And I goes, what do you mean, shh? They busted their ass on this show. They got there's no audience but us. They got a right, if they want to sing it out, let them sing it out. And I just told them, keep going. So they sung it out, and it was great, and they loved it. And then we had another one at a bar, which didn't matter because everybody was drunk, but which is the way it should be. But that moment there is when we realized we had a show, and that was, to me, again, believe it or not, to my mind, my job was done. But this was just the first show, the first 2 shows. So it was like, okay, so now it's an uphill fight to get the rest of them. And then I hear this rumbling about, we're going to change it. And I go, why? You won't even put up the show. I wanted them to put the show up for an Emmy because I had people in LA looking at us. I had people who were kind of jealous, looking at it going, you guys can possibly be better than us. I had friends who were doing the new He-Man. They had even one of the top-notch, I think it was one of the same studios doing Turtles. And but there were Japanese, more Japanese behind them. Japanese studios execs behind that show. And so they were looking at us and going, they're going to fail. They were so damn jealous. And people were like,
interesting.
I can't believe you pulled that off.
New York did it. Yeah.
And so I wanted 4Kids to show it off, put it up for an Emmy. And that's when I got this feeling of, okay, I to this day, I still can't explain it. In LA, you got something like that. That is golden. You want to show it off. You want it to get awards. That's going to be great PR. Here's these guys, because they had their own network, thinking that's all that mattered. As long as we got the money coming in from here and there, that's all that mattered. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to show what you've done, and that's going to attract more, either more offers, more ideas, more. And it was like, that's when I was.
That goes back to it being a licensing company and making money on the toys and the things and the product, and not necessarily thinking about the accolades for the show.
And that accolades opens doors, because Playmates went nuts. They gave so much swag to Carol, and I stole it and gave it to the artists. She would give them some, and I knew where she hit them, so I would sneak them more. Because they earned it. I can say this now. What's she gonna do to me?
She's not gonna.
What's she gonna do? Tell my mom?
Chuck's in trouble.
Take a number. And I'm listening to them, and again, I've never had a relationship with Playmates where they were like, whatever you want, and they came to me, whatever you want, you tell us, we'll get it for you. You need more time to work on this, we'll get it for you. And I'm like, I have never, ever, I want to keep this relationship. I want to keep working with them, because that made us rise above just pumping it out. And there were moments when it was like, it would have been so easy just to sit back and go on automatic. But I also knew we had to maintain a level of quality. That was the other thing they didn't understand. If we had to start over in mid-show, change the look, and that's what they were talking about. They wanted to go to that Back to the Future crap, and I went, that's even stupider.
I was wondering if that's the change they were pushing for, the future.
I was not a fan of that. Did not like it.
That early, huh?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Again, we're only 2 seasons in. It was bad
Yeah.
enough we rushed 2 seasons because again, we didn't have a break. Um, and they're starting to talk about shifting. I'm like, no, what? And I may get the
Wow.
timelines wrong, but it's still you got to have the time. And I'm looking at it like these kids are basically just learned how to put a show together. Now you're going to put that same pressure to recreate the show that they just did. And we're just working out the rules with the overseas studio and how to maintain the color and shadows. You're asking me about shadows. I wanted shadows on the characters. You'll see some shows where there's no shadows on the characters. To me, it became flat. I didn't want that to feel flat.
Right.
I wanted this to look the best 2D that we can do. And
Hmm.
we had some CGI moments, and I had to be careful of that. But I also wanted to always feel 2D or toon shaded. And so a lot of the vehicles were that, which was great. It came out great, but I knew that every day we were pushing the studio always on the brink of too much. And
Yeah.
so I just knew, well, if you're not going to listen to me, and I'm supposed to be the guy again, hey, you brought me here, you know, then why am I
Yeah.
staying here? I'm not going to break my head and be like these other guys and then get unceremoniously kicked out, which is kind of what they did anyway. But at least I was
Yeah.
aware of it and I had felt done. Uh,
Right. And you felt like you did good work in your 2 seasons there, which I think is
Thank
all
you.
we can
Yeah.
kind of ask for. Yeah. I mean,
I'm,
that show gets so much praise. So, I mean,
it does.
you showed up, you made it work,
I
and
was proud
I
of
mean,
that.
what else can we?
I
Yeah.
mean, here's the other side of it too. It wasn't just me, it was the kids. Again, these guys, the guys I brought in they got known as the turtles around town, as you probably heard, and they certainly heard about it in the building. And I couldn't have done it without them. They were the ones that came together. I stayed longer, as long as I could, to make sure that they
Yeah.
kept their jobs. And when I knew
Okay.
that, all right, they knew not to get rid of these guys, then okay, so you want to get rid of me? Fine, that's cool. Um,
It's a I mean, like we said before, we wanted to talk about knowing when to leave.
mhm.
And I mean, it seems like when there's some writing on the wall, but you have to trust your gut.
Yeah,
And you got out you got out and you did what was right for you, which is ultimately the most important thing.
I have
So,
found for me, if what's the point in arguing when you know you're not going to be listened to?
yeah.
And
Hmm.
if you're just going to sell yourself, do it. Look, if I had a family, and I'm being real here, and I would tell this to young artists coming in, you got to pick your priorities as it works personally to you. I didn't have a family here. I
Mhm.
didn't have a loved one here. Um, not only between relationships, but it was long distance from the closest friends and people I've worked with and trust. I mean, I remember talking to Sue and telling them, I think they're going to get rid of me, but I'm hoping they will keep on to you. But I'm letting you know if they get rid of me, and since you were part of my
Right.
chances are they're going to get rid of you. And she was like, I'm going to quit before that happens. I went, well, I want you to finish the show first, but I'm just letting you know, I don't want you to come in Monday and go, where's Chuck? Oh, he's gone.
Right.
And I knew
Right.
who they're going to pick, which was a joke. The person they picked was someone who I had highly touted as a board artist. Next thing I know, he's being groomed as a director. And
Right.
we won't go into all that, but I would just say that it was, um, again, I decided, it's not worth me fighting for. And
Yeah.
the way
You
they,
knew, I mean, you
you
had
know,
worked enough by this point to know it,
I was done like I said, by the second show. I felt like, because again, that was several 20 weeks of ball busting stuff day in and day out,
yeah.
7 days a week for me. Again, in a town where I didn't, I remember Lloyd going, well, maybe you can rent a car and go driving around. I goes, Lloyd, really? And where am I going to go? Jersey? It's like,
Hey, 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 hey. Watch it.
I know. Okay, we'll make it easier. Where am I going to
All
go?
right, we're
Buffalo?
ending this. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
So,
I know.
okay,
I found places in
so
Jersey I liked. It was just at the time, it was
fine,
like, when
fine,
do I get to
fine.
go out? Anyway, um,
So, okay, so your time at 4 Kids
yes,
comes to an
comes to an
end.
end.
Um, just quickly recap what you've like stuff you're proud of that you've done since then, what you would like
Oh,
to still do.
God, that's a tough thing right now, especially after today. A lot of things. The thing I've learned the last couple of years, and you get to a place where, like, I'm proud of Turtles. It's on the history books, as the kids say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those first 2 years still stand up. It has been called even better than the revival shows that have come up. So I'm proud of that. I'm
Yeah.
proud of, especially with my background with Turtles, I'm proud that I was able to get out of my own way to make it work. I'm
Mm-hmm.
proudest of the people who I worked with on that show, who I came up with, the actors, you guys, my artists. They know who they
Yeah.
are. I'm proud of them.
Yeah.
Even the ones who I, may have butt heads with, our editor, he did a phenomenal job because he also had to do the music editing too. So it's like, everybody, Sue Blue. I mean, everybody, I'm proudest of
Yeah.
that. It came together. And that's enough of that. 4Kids, they got what they paid for. Um, After that, again, everything you learn, whether it's a win or a failure, goes into the next show. So I got to take over I got to be on a couple of shows after that. One in particular was called Kulapari, Army of Frogs, and which is still on Netflix for right now.
Oh, good. Okay.
I got to take a lot of that and put it into that show, even though that one had a very problematic beginning. Um, I was the last known director on the Boondocks. And
Oh,
that
wow.
was that was one of those things where you never see on
Huh.
paper, but it was like a lot of what I learned through that was mostly a political problem of dealing with it.
Okay.
I mean, I had amazing artists I was about to work with, but I was also coming in after it was already in development, and I could see right then it was never going to go anywhere. And I just
Yeah.
had to be the one to be, unfortunately, as we say, uh, I was the band leader on the Titanic. So it was just a matter of letting it
It's
go.
time. I mean, it's timing with all this
It's
stuff. It
timing,
is.
but I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for I got to work with an amazing studio, a good producing group. I really enjoyed them. Um, Kulapari, again, working with Netflix, getting it out on the air. Um, and then you hit this spot where it goes, I mean, in between there, I got to work on a Scooby Doo show that I liked. Mystery Incorporated, really enjoyed boarding on
Oh,
that.
cool.
Worked on a Batman Brave and the Bold show. Really enjoyed that. It's one of my favorite Batman shows. Next, I never worked on Batman Beyond, but Brave and the Bold was hilarious. Great show.
Hmm.
And again, all the things you learn from those experiences, you take to where you finally, if you're smart, you look at it and go, okay, I've done all these things. What am I doing for me?
Right.
What are you gonna do? I mean, I don't know how many times people have said, when are you gonna develop your show? Well, it takes a lot to put a show
Yeah.
together. And I've been on that end. The other side of it is, besides money, it's just where you're gonna take it. But most importantly, what are you gonna do? So for me, kind of coming into the last part of my career, because right now I call myself semi-retired, meaning that if a
Okay.
property came up that interests me, I take it. But I did turn down a property that came to me, and I got out of it because I just didn't. I just felt like, you know what, this is not the right time.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I want to take that experience I got in Turtles and put it for myself. Somewhere in here,
Yeah.
I want to create something, whether it's a show, whether it's a book. I find I'm running back towards comics because comics, you can be a one-man band.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have my comics pedigree, so I can show off on that. But it would be kind of fun to do that. It would be fun to do it as a show, but like I said,
Oh,
it's
I'm so excited to see what you do next now. You've gotten
ah,
me really
oh,
psyched to
I hope
see
so. I hope so.
what
I
you
don't know.
do.
I'm telling myself this because this morning I woke up and went, look, we've all had a very devastating thing happen. And the only thing I know how you get through devastation, to quote the vice president, is work. And the
Hmm.
most important thing is work for yourself. If you can't work for someone and you find that those doors are closing, and a lot of us in animation has found that it's been an
Hmm.
ugly, ugly,
Yeah.
ugly time
Yeah.
of animation. Then, and it's funny because when I came in Turtles and I got to meet the New York animation community, they were all saying kind of the same thing. It was kind of dead in New York. And I told them, well, get your asses West Coast. I don't know, why
Hmm.
aren't you in West Coast? Who told you not to go to West Coast? Because they're being told not to go. And it was like, what, are you out of your mind? That's where the business is. You got to go, or go anywhere where it's going to allow you to do this. And most of them did. Most of them did come to the West Coast and did that. I'm glad for them. But now it's getting tough, and it keeps coming back to, if you can't work for someone, for God's sakes, work for yourself. You should be doing that anyway.
Anyway, well, yeah, in the free time, in the little bit of free time you have, you're supposed. I mean, Steve, again, this comes up all the time. It's a recurring theme here.
I guess I started to say, if I had a family and I had brought them to New York, I probably would have stayed and put up with whatever 4Kids had thrown at me because I had a family. But I was in a spot where it was like, I'm only required to take care of me. So that's where you have to decide. Even when you have all these, when do you find the time? Well, it really comes down to how much you want it. I was told this by an old artist who got me started in comics back in the day. And I went to him on my little sojourn, and I didn't know anybody. I had no credentials, and he invited me to his house, and he looked over my work, and I was willing to take whatever the hell he's going to tell me. And I asked, should I try? Should I give it a shot? Am I good enough? And he honestly said, it doesn't matter how good you are. It matters how much you want it. And if you want this, you will make it good. You're good enough, as far as I'm concerned, but you haven't got it yet. So you got to prove to yourself you want it. So do you want it? And that told me, yeah, you're right. I got to sacrifice and get the hell out of here. And I did. And I got to speak with him
great life
a couple of
lesson.
months ago, which I'm really grateful. I've been tracking him down for years. And he couldn't remember me until we talked about that moment, and it popped in his head. Oh, yeah. And then he went, you did make it, did you? It was, well, yes and no, but good God, man. I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't. So I guess I did,
You did.
And I thank him for
did.
it. And that lesson, and he still teaches me lessons to this day. I was joking about something he was going through, and I went, see, I'm still needing to hear this. So I feel like that's my job, is to be there. So when the young artists come to me, I get to tell them what he told me. And I have to tell that to myself, that, hey, what are we doing for ourselves today? And that's what we have to do to get through this crap. You got to do something. That's called fighting. Do something.
And never stop learning either.
Never stop learning. Yeah.
Never.
You've said the word learn so many times, and it's so important. And I've taken note of it.
And I never listen. And that's the other thing. I always say a lot of shit that I don't believe in, but no, you have to. You really do. You do. You have to learn. Even if everything. Learn everything in some capacity and give it to yourself.
Yeah, you've given us this is going to sit with me, this
good.
interview. So thank you so much. I think for both of us. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for taking this much time with us. I'll wrap this up, but we can keep talking after this.
That's all right. Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. I feel so much better compared to where I started. So, it's that thing. We just need to get shit out, and we're not in this alone, and that there's always a part two if you're willing to deal with it.
Wow. Chuck Patton, thank you. I want to just clarify the reason we kept alluding to what day this is we're recording this on the day of the election, the 2024 November 5th election. Regardless of what your political beliefs are, we were not thrilled. It was a tough day for us. So just to kind of rally and talk about something else was nice, but it also kind of hung over us. So thank you to Chuck for doing that. And Steve, I just kept thinking of your career trajectory and all this stuff while we were going through all this. And it made me excited to see what Chuck does next and excited to see what you do next. And
yeah, I mean, if you take a look at Chuck's info, he's been on so many shows, and just looking at his resume, anyone would be thankful to have that experience. Like so many familiar properties and stuff like that, and great shows too to boot. I know he didn't have the kindest word to say about Deke and BKN, but No, there's some awesome shows there.
But some beloved shows in there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put a link to his website in the show notes, so definitely check out his website.
But I will say, I think what's great about this episode is, I think just some like assurance that I don't think there's no such thing as a perfect production.
Yeah.
There's just like, and I think always there's the phrase like, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. And I think that could describe the 2003 Ninja Turtle series very well. It's just a very rough go in the beginning and just stuck the landing.
Yeah.
But it just seems like no matter what, there's just always going to be, there's butting heads. There's going to be, just miscommunication, and it's another familiar phrase and that you're familiar with is, it's a miracle anything gets made.
Yeah, that's what I just keep thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anything ending up on a screen is just a feat.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to all you out there who got anything done.
Yeah, and I think this is like this was still on recording. If not, we could cut this out. But just talking about finding the time to do things, to make some fulfilling for yourself. Your own thing is so important, and I feel that too. And I think people that don't know you kind of on the outside looking and you think like, oh, well, they work on this big show or they've been on all these shows. They've got to be, loving life. And, it's not always, sometimes a job's a job. And I don't mean to talk lightly of our opportunities, but that feeling it rings true. It's, I think we're always looking for, so like that one thing that we really want to put our time and energy into, and we don't want to wait too long.
Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of life lessons in this interview.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, because I think today was a day I wanted to hear some stuff like that. And it's just a reminder to all of us, do you do things that make you proud, happy, fulfill your obligations, but look out for yourself too.
Be responsible. I kind of know. Like pick your battles too? That was brought up a lot. Because, know when it's like, know when to stay and like, what is it? It's like the song, no one hold them.
Know when to hold them. Know when to walk away.
I recently,
you guys don't know that song. It's The Gambler.
Yeah. I recently, I played poker for the first time, and how'd
you do?
I started terribly, and then I came back around and I was doing well. So,
because you were willing to learn.
Yes.
And that was the other lesson.
You had to make some sacrifices. I had to, spend a little more money, but,
all right. Well, I don't want to know how much you lost.
Not that much.
We'll talk about Steve's gambling problem on the next episode. But you guys, thank you for sticking with us, and listening and supporting the show. We really, really appreciate it. All the stuff, again, in the show notes, the links, blah, 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 blah. And we will
catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4Kids Flashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. For podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends, or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to Maji, MAJI.media. Thanks for listening.